Okay guys, so yesterday we created two function modules, right? So one is to read the header level data. So what is the input for this header level data function module? Vendor number is the input. We have taken vendor number as a input, and there is one more function module. Sorry, there is one more parameter, exporting parameter. What are we returning here? Header level data. Whatever the header level data we selected from EKKO table, we are returning into this exporting parameter. What is the type for this exporting parameter? We have taken a structure. On top of the structure we have created one table type, right? Because if we use structure here, it acts as a work area like structure. It can accept only single record. So that's why we created table type by using that structure, right? You can also create table types using tables, database tables. Okay, but when we need to select only limited fields or required fields, we create a custom structure, and on top of that we can create a table type. So this is to read the header level data. So we created one more function module to read the item level data. So what is the input for this item level data? Whatever the records we selected from header level data internal table in the other function module. You might confuse how the data which we are returning in the header level function module will come to this item level function module, right? So for that reason we have defined one importing parameter. What is the type of this importing parameter? What is the reference type of this importing parameter of item level data?
The
Whatever the
table type.
data we are returning in header level data, the output of header level data function module is the input for item level data function module. If you check, same type we are taking, right? How we are going to pass these parameters, we'll check when we are using it in the program. And what it is returning? It is returning EKPO data as output. Reference structure is EKPO, right? Now what is the next step? We have header level data, item level data. Next we need to merge it, right? Let's create one more function module. Create, provide the function group. Now to merge PO data, what are the inputs we need? Header level data, item level data, or any other material text, right? If there is any more data selections, we need all those data, right? Different types of data. So we need to define them as a importing parameter. How can you access the data inside the function module? Through importing parameters. We need to define it as a importing parameters. For example, so what type of structures? Is it a work area like structure or internal table like structure? The header data and item level data.
Internal tables.
How can you say that? Because we
We
defined
getting
it
this.
using a table type, right? If you defined any importing or exporting parameters with the table type, that means it's a internal table like structure. If you defined it through table name or any structure name, it can accept only single record, work area like structure. If you defined it using data element, single value, it can accept single value or it can return only single value. Clear? Now IT, it's just a naming convention. You can take any name, but most of the projects we use IT for importing parameter with table type. So what is the associated type for this EKKO data? We have already created the table type, this one. zdemo ekko. You can take any name like PO item, like that also you can take these parameters. Think T underscore ekpo. So the input for this merge function module is header level data and item level data. So I'm passing that input through importing parameters. Now what about the exporting parameter? What is the output of this merge program? Sorry, merge function module.
All the fields which we have taken in
Combination
the
of
select
both header data and item
and
level
item.
data. Combined data of both. Let me create one structure for this. Create. Let me copy it from the structures instead of finding it one by one. Ekko. Just copy and paste. Control Y. Copy and paste here. And what are the other? We have header level data. Next, we need item level data, right? Go to ekpo structure. EBLN is already there. Copy rest of the fields. Paste here. Maintain the currency and quantity fields. That's it, right? Activate the structure. These fields can be in any order. Order is we can define any order. For example, I'll add EBLP next to EBLN. Because we are not using this structure in a select statement, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, our structure is ready. Are we returning single record or multiple output records? The final output, are we returning a single record or multiple records?
Multiple records.
Multiple records. So can we use structure in the exporting parameter?
No, sir.
No,
Table
we have
type.
to create table type. Copy this, go back, create a table type. See, without using table type, you can use tables parameter. We have tables parameter, right? By using tables parameter, you can return the output without using a table type. You can use table name or structure name, but that is obsolete, outdated object. Okay, that's why we are creating table type and using exporting parameter. Activate the table type. Tomorrow we'll see how to use proper package instead of using local object, and how to create transport requests. Now I'll just show you how can we use tables parameter instead of exporting or changing. So IT final, what we need to take here, associated type. You can take structure name or table name, database table name. What it is saying?
Table parameters are absolute.
Obsolete. So it is outdated. It is providing a warning. Okay. Here we need to use like, not type. Here we need to use like. Now this IT final will act as a internal table like structure, even though you used structure name, and you can also use table name EKKO EKPO. Okay, what is the difference? You need to use like here. Since it is outdated object, we'll try not to use it, but in standard function modules you can find a lot of them with tables parameter. Whatever the parameter you find in tables, that is none other than internal table like structure. No confusion. Okay, but here in exporting parameters you need to go by associated type. Final type, here we need to use a table type to make it internal table like structure. Clear? Now we have our input data, that is EKKO and EKPO data, and we have our output. Now define some exceptions. Go to source code. If IT importing parameter, I am referring to the importing parameter, not any internal table. Okay, I am referring to this. EKKO is initial. How to raise an exception?
Rise.
Using
Rise.
rise keyword, rise and the exception name. How can you capture the exception in calling program?
By subarc.
By using subarc check. If subarc equal to 1, first exception. Subarc equal to 2, second exception, like that. Rise, no item data. Now we need to merge, right? So what is the input to merge the internal tables? So we have two importing parameters, EKKO and EKPO. Now we need to use these two internal table like structures to merge the PO data. Now which one we need to loop? We have two parameters, right? EKKO and EKPO. Which one we need to loop?
EKPO.
EKPO, because we have multiple records for the each purchase order in EKPO. Loop at IT EKPO into, will define one work area, data of ls underscore EKPO end loop. Then what we need here? We have a final output structure, right? IT final. This is the internal table we have. Do we have any work area? Because we cannot directly populate data to final or any internal table, right? How can you
Yes,
populate?
sir.
Only through work area, right? We need a work area now. Define one work area. Define one work area in the function module. How can you define a work area? Data
Data. Work area name.
ls final
LS
type.
final
What is the
type.
final you need to take? What is the type you need to take? What is the IT final reference structure? Same structure you need to take, but it is table type. If you take table type, what will happen? Now is it an internal table or work area?
Internal table.
Internal table.
Now it acts
Internal
as a internal table, even though you are not using type table of. You don't need to use type table of when you are using table type. If you simply use type, then it acts as a internal table, not work area. Even though whatever the name you take, it will create this as a internal table because you are referring to table type. Okay. If you use structure, then it consider it as a work area. Okay. Or to define internal table with reference to the structure name, what you need to do type table of. Now it acts as a internal table. Okay, observe the difference of using like table type and structure in the programs. Okay, you don't need to use type table of when you are using table type to define the internal tables. Now we have a final structure. I'll just use mu corresponding ls ekpo to ls final because I have taken the same field names. I did not take different field names in all the structures. What next? We need header data, right? Read. Which one you need to read?
EKKO.
IT ekko into data of ls ekko with key ebln
EBLN.
equal to
Work area of
ekpo
EKPO,
ebln.
EBLN.
If see equal to 0 and if I'll simply use mu corresponding, but don't use, there are only few fields. EKKO to ls underscore final. Clear the work areas.
We have to append.
What is the exporting parameter name?
IT finance.
IT. I think we should have
IT
take,
final.
let me change the naming convention. I'll take it as ET. Okay, not IT. Okay, since it is exporting parameter, rename it. Go to the source code. I'll take it as ET underscore final. Okay, activate. Now our final data merge internal table is function module is completed. Now whatever the business logic we have, that is completed. We have used three different function modules to execute that business logic, right? So what is the input for our program? We thought of using vendor number, right? We thought of using vendor number, right?
Yes, sir.
Are we validating vendor number? So we need one functionality to validate the vendor number, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's create one function module to let's modularize the validation of vendor number so that you can use that function module in any program to validate the vendor number, so that you don't need to worry about the logic. Just pass the input, return the output. Okay. Zdemo validate vendor, create. So I'm keeping all the logic, validation logic inside a function module, not in the main program. Save it. What is the input for this function module to validate the vendor number? Whatever the vendor number provided by the user, right? IM underscore vendor type. What is the type? LIFN something. Don't remember.
Listener, LIFNR.
ELIFN.
Okay.
Data element, right? Not the field name. Data element is ELIFN. We need to take data element here because we are passing only single value, right? Vendor number.
Okay.
That's why I'm taking data element reference here. So it can take only single value as importing parameter. Now, once we take the value and validate it, how can you know whether it is successful or failed, whether that vendor number is correct vendor number or invalid vendor number? How can you know? You need to return something, right? So that in the calling program, we can identify, okay, this value is valid or invalid. We need to return something. So there are multiple ways of returning the output. You can just use exceptions. You can just use exceptions. We'll raise an exception, right? Or we'll write one exporting parameter, ex underscore status type. How you want to notify? How you want to notify the user in the calling program whether that vendor is valid vendor or not? There are multiple ways of doing it. You can simply raise exception if it is invalid vendor, right? You can simply raise exception if it is invalid vendor. If it is valid vendor, don't raise the exception. Then you don't need exporting parameter. What you can check? Call the function module. If sub rc equal to 0, that means what is it? It's a valid vendor. If sub rc is not equal to 0, that means it's an invalid vendor. Like without exporting parameter, how can you do it? Go to source code. First define exception, invalid vendor. Go to source code. How can you validate the vendor? How can you validate the vendor? Whether it is a valid vendor or not. What is the check table for vendor? LFA1. So you can write select statement of LFA1 to find whether it is vendor is a valid vendor or not. Select, which select statement we need to write? Select single or select?
Select single.
Select single. Select only listener from LFA1 into where listener equal to what we need to pass here, im
Accurate.
underscore importing parameter. Okay, if sy hyphen sub rc equal to 0, that means the vendor number, whatever the vendor number we are trying to find, is available in the table. Sub rc equal to 0, do nothing. Do nothing. If sub rc is not equal to 0, else rise. What is that exception?
Invalid one.
Invalid vendor. This is one way of doing returning exception, right? What is the other way? Define one importing parameter, ex vendor type. Use the same, return the same value. If it is valid, return the same value. It is sub rc equal to 0 and pass the ex vendor equal to, so that you can check in the exporting parameter, you can check whether it is returning vendor number or not. If it returns the vendor number, that is a valid vendor, otherwise invalid vendor, right? You can do it multiple ways, right? Which one you prefer to use, by using exceptions or by returning some value? We'll do both. Whatever the way you want, you can use. In else part, I'll raise the exception. So we have two alternatives. We can check the exporting parameter value, or we can also check exception, the calling program. Okay, now we have all the function modules ready, including validations. Now let's create a program to call these function modules. Create a program. Define a selection screen. What is the input for this program? We'll take only vendor number. Data element is ELIFN. Initialization. Selection screen. Start of selection. So initialization, we are not passing any default values, but in the validation, at that selection screen, we are validating the vendor number. How to validate the vendor number? So I'm using function module. Now I'm using function module because we are already having a function module to validate the vendor. I don't need to worry about logic or everything, like how to validate the vendor, what is the select statement I need to write. I'll simply call the function module. What is the function module name? Validate vendor, gdemo validate vendor. Go to pattern, call the function module name, or you can also search here like this, z validate star vendor with these keywords f4. So this is the function module available. Call it. By default it is defined something. I don't want this. So what is the input for this function module? Vendor number, right? Whatever the vendor number entered by the user, parameter value. I'm passing the parameter value here. You need to make sure both importing parameter of the function module and the whatever the value we are passing in the program should refer to the same type. Okay, what is the type of this vendor? IAM vendor. Go and check in the function module. ELIFN, right? What is the type of this parameter? ELIFN, right? Both are same, so you can pass that value. Now how we can capture the output, the status of the function module? So here we have, in this function module we have two alternatives. By checking the importing parameter, value of importing parameter, or you can also check exceptions. If sub RC equal not if sub RC is not equal to 0, what do you mean by that? It's a invalid vendor, right? Message sub RC not equal to 0, message enter valid vendor type E, right? What is the alternative? Take one variable, pass it here in the exporting parameter to return the value, right? You can also do like this. If lv underscore vendor is initial, what do you mean by that? If it is initial, that means we are not passing that value in the function module. That means it's a invalid vendor. So we have two alternatives to validate this. Clear everyone? You can use either this one or just check by exception. Okay. Our validation part is completed. What is next? Select the header level data. So we have a function module for that, to selecting the header level data. Go to pattern. What is the function module name? For read EKKO. What is the input for this? What is the input for this EKKO function module? Vendor number, right?
Vendor number.
Pass the vendor number. What is the output? What is the output for this EKKO function module? It returns EKKO data as output, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
To capture that output,
Yes, sir.
what we need? We need one internal table in the calling program. This is calling program, right? This is the main program, right? In this main program, we need to have one internal table. Define the internal table. It is automatically defining the internal tables, okay? But if you want to define, how you need to define one internal table to read the data, from the function module, data, lt underscore ekko, type. What is the type we need to take? Either you can take table type or structure, whatever the parameter. Go and check in the function module. What is the exporting parameter? This one, right? Take the same type. I'm taking table type here. That's why I'm not using type table of. So it acts as
Yes,
a
sir.
internal table. If you use structure, use type table of syntax. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Pass the internal table name. So we are returning data to this LTEKKO internal table. Then next, what we need to select? Item level data, right?
Item level data. EKPO.
If I'll do like this, if LTEKKO is not initial, LTEKKO is not initial, then what we need to call?
Item level data.
Item level data, EKPO. Remove this. What is the input for this item level data function module?
Header level
Header level
internal
data, right?
table.
So header level internal table data. So we are already reading header level data to one internal table. So pass this internal table data to header this item level data function module as input. Now what you need to make sure, both parameters, both internal table and this EKKO parameter referring to the same type or not, right? So what is the type of this EKKO in the function module? ZMOT
Table.
EKKO, right? What is the type of this internal table? LTEKKO. Same, right? ZMOT EKKO. Both are referring to the same types. And what it is returning? Item level data. Item level data internal table. For this, define one internal table with item level data to return the values, to capture the values in the program. Okay. Now we have header level data and item level data into two different function modules. What is the next step?
Looping.
Now we need to merge
Merging.
both internal tables. When we need to merge, if LT EKKO is not initial and LT EKPO is not initial. When both internal tables are not empty, if you use AND, Both should be true. If you use or, it will check either this one or this one. Any one condition is true, it will execute when you are using or. Okay, either that one or this one. But when we are using and, both should be true. And if, now we need to merge the data, right? For that we have a different function module called the merge function module. Search it, pivot data merge, continue. Now what is the input for merge function module? Header level data and item level data, right? So we're already capturing header level data to this LTEKKO internal table, pass that internal table here, and we are capturing item level data to LTEKPO internal table, capture that here, pass that here. What is the final output? What is it returning? Final output, right? Define one internal table for final output. LT final or pivot data type zdemo underscore t underscore pivot data, I think, correct? Whatever the type you are referring in function module, check the type and use same type in the program also. Okay, enable the importing parameter, uncomment this, pass LT final internal table, enable the exceptions, right? Then what next?
Output. End of section.
If LT final is not initial, CL demo output, class name display, provide the internal table as input. Activate, maintain the text element. Let's test this program. Let me keep a breakpoint from the validation function module. Let me take one valid vendor with some data. For that, I'll check the data in EKKO. Vendor, I'll take one vendor with multiple records. I'll take this vendor number. When acceleration screen event will trigger after executing the program. Okay, execute. Now what is the event it is triggering? At selection screen. Now what is the input for this function module? Vendor number. So if you press F6, what will happen? It will complete the execution in single step. If you press F5, it will go inside the function module. Sub RC equal to 0. That means this vendor is valid vendor. Then we are returning the vendor number, and we are not raising the exception. We are not raising the exception. Now in the calling program, sub RC equal to 0, right? What is the check we are doing? If sub RC is not equal to 0, then we are raising the error. So the error message, it won't raise the error message. In the calling program, we are also capturing the vendor number, right? So you can also check by this. Now, so what is the input for header data internal table? Vendor number. You are passing vendor number and returning header level data. Do we have any records? Yeah, we have 12 records. We return 12 records. And we are passing these 12 records as input to the item level data. In EKPO we got 18 records including line items, right? Now we are passing both header level data and item level data to this merge internal table, right, using importing parameters and merging inside the function module and returning the output and appending all the data to ET final, because ET final is the exporting parameter. F7, I'll go back to the calling program without debugging all this. If you press F7, it will take you to the calling program. We have 18 records in the final output, display the output. That's how we can use different function modules in the program. Like what you need to understand. So actually, 3 different function modules are not required to merge to read only PO data, right? We can simply use one function module and we can write a join. But why we are using 3 different function modules? So we need to understand how to pass the importing parameters and how to return the exporting parameters. Okay? And how can you pass data to function module, right? Can we use internal tables, work areas defined in the program inside the function module? We defined some function module, we defined some internal tables in the main program, right? Can we refer them in the function module, inside the function module, whatever the function modules we are calling here?
No, sir.
No, we cannot. Okay, function module is an independent block. Okay, we can just pass the output and return the, sorry, we can pass the input and return the output.
Sir, here can we use inline declarations, sir?
Where?
Here in the program,
Yeah,
can we use inline declarations?
function modules won't support inline declarations like this. At the rate data, it won't support inline declarations.
Okay. Okay.
But class methods will support. So when we are working on class methods, you can observe that.